I'm Nayan Chanda. I'm the Yale Center for the Study of Globalization, and we are delighted to have with us in our studios Ambassador Youssef Zada, who's the Consul General of Egypt in New York. Mr. Consul General, welcome.
Thank you.
So, thanks for making this time for us. The easy question. How does it feel to be representing a government in transition? How is it like?
Well, it feels good and bad at the same time. Good because Egypt went through a wonderful transition, a transition that just removed a heavy burden on its shoulders. I mean, you know, we were suffering from frustration from everything, from inadequate housing, drinking water, public transportation, you name it. So I see this revolution against frustration, if you like. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, transitional governments and transitional periods in general, it's a bit worrying because, you know, you have so many things going on, so many people differing in opinions. And remember, the Egyptian revolution was a revolution without a leader. It was the popular revolution by the masses. Mm-hmm. So here we don't have a leader of opposition like what happened in some other countries that experienced that.
So it's very fluid. And that fluidity creates uncertainty as to
definitely, yes,
how to react to a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because this is a transitional government, what kind of brief do you have from Cairo as to what are the things that have changed from the past in terms of your conduct?
Well, one of the good things that changed is that you don't have corruption as you did before, because you had a huge gap between the have and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is, of course, in many countries the same case, but in Egypt it was linked with politics. So if you have and you're powerful, I mean, the rich and powerful ruled the whole place, and the masses were just neglected. Mm-hmm. And we have people who are living in squalors because of this. At the time, the Egyptian economy was booming with unprecedented numbers for tourists, huge trade with the world, foreign direct investments and all that. And at the same time, people were getting poorer. So this was the imbalance. There was something wrong happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in terms of foreign policy, in terms of dealing with other countries, institutions, you have no new directive from Cairo? You are carrying on as if it was in the past, or?
No, of course not, because you're not having instructions as before from an autocratic government. You're allowed now to say your opinion. Your opinion is being considered every time. For example, I'll just give you a simple example, the right to vote for Egyptians abroad. I mean, this is a big issue. Mm-hmm. Egyptians living in other countries outside Egypt are longing for participation, political participation. They've been neglected and deprived of this right for years. Mm-hmm. And now we have certain websites, Facebook things and all that about a right to vote for Egyptians. And of course, me as an ambassador, I was asked by the government there, transitional government, about my opinion. Mm-hmm. If this happens, how are we going to manage opening ballots for the Egyptians abroad here? Mm-hmm. So this is how it works. I mean, you're being asked about your opinion about something, they take it into consideration. It's quite different than before.
So that's a very important change, that you are part of the policy-making process in that sense.
Yes.
And you are giving your input and they are considering it and then.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, in terms of relationship with Israel, that has been a key element of Egypt's foreign policy. And there have been some changes, but the development of the release of this Israeli prisoner with the mediation of Egypt, I understand, this is creating a new situation. So what's your thoughts about the prospect of Egypt-Israel relations in the future?
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the Israeli people for getting back Gilad Shalit, who was a young man. He didn't do anything. He just served in the Israeli Defense Forces and abducted by Hamas 5 years ago because, of course, of the animosity between both parties. Now, with Egyptian mediation, we managed to free 400 plus prisoners and hopefully 700 more in the weeks and days to come. So this is a good step by Egyptian mediation. What did we do? We have good relations with Hamas. At the same time, we had good relations with Israel, our neighbors. And as everybody knows, we have these peace accords signed with Israel since March 1979. And we are willing to respect these peace accords because it is important to live in peace with your neighbor. I mean, we already had our wars and differences, and now we changed our policies with Israel from a war policy to a peace broker. Mm-hmm. Actually, Egypt is helping the peace negotiations with the quartet, with the negotiations between the PA, Palestinian Authority, and Israel. So I think relations with Israel have to go on, business as usual. What people keep saying about Mubarak being the main safeguard to this, I don't believe this. Mm-hmm. We as Egyptians believe that our relations with our neighbors are important, and we're going to safeguard it for the sake of everybody.
Yeah, but also I think with the improved relations with Hamas, you may have even a stronger hand in as a mediator.
Definitely, yes, because if you can talk to both sides at the same time, why not? Mm-hmm. I mean, we already had relations with Palestinians, as you've just mentioned. We have better relations with Hamas after Mubarak's regime went away. So the thing is, you can play a better role as a mediator. I think this is in the interest of everybody.
Yeah. Egypt has been, since the 50s, has been the kind of leader in the Arab world. Egyptian model, Egyptian political ideology were accepted, followed by millions of Arab people. So how do you see Egypt carrying on that role now in this post-Arab Spring situation?
Well, yes, this is a very important question, because Egyptians were wondering what happened to their image, if you like, in the Arab world. I mean, when Nasser was there in the 50s and 60s, until the late 60s, and then when Anwar Sadat came with his glorious personality and his links with the West and all that, I mean, things started moving. But of course, when the peace treaty was brokered with Israel, many Arab countries boycotted Egypt for some time, until we had, unfortunately, the assassination of the president in October 6, 1981. And now, I think in Mubarak's era, things happened with the Egyptian influence in the Arab world. I mean, it was sort of replaced by a Saudi role, with respect to our friends the Saudis, by a Turkish role, even somebody who's not in the Arab world, by an Iranian role. Yeah. I mean, Iran, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia were playing the role that Egypt should have been part of.
Yes. Yes.
And it was deprived of it because of Mubarak policies of self-containment and, well, just playing lazy. So we couldn't participate in anything that was happening around us, unfortunately. Now I think we have a different perspective of things. We're cooperating with many countries, as you've seen the cooperation with Turkey lately. Of course, Turkey has some differences now with Israel, but again, as you mentioned earlier, we can play also a role in that.
And the Turkish model of democracy, where the military kind of stays in the background and political elect officials run the country, is that model going to be applied to Egypt, or do you think there will be a different model in Egypt?
Well, some people have been talking about following the Turkish model of the secular state and all that. I mean, Egypt is different because people, well, we have the Coptic population. I mean, a third of the population or quarter of the population of Egypt are Christians. And this is something that Egypt is characterized with, different than many other countries, with the exception perhaps of the Palestinians and countries like Lebanon. So, and of course, Egyptian Copts are very important. These are the original Egyptians. When Islam came to the country, they were there. These are the oranges of Egypt. And we're very proud of our Egyptian Copts. So the thing is, if you have to play a sectarian role, you have to get in consideration also the privileges and the rights of the two faiths, Christianity and Islam. And this is not very easy in light of the rise of many Islamic rigid thoughts, as we've seen worldwide, not only in Egypt.
So I think you have a rather unique sort of responsibility of leading this democratic development in a way that is secular, at the same time respects the countries, the faiths that they are desires, right?
I wouldn't use the word secular. We're trying to place that with the civil state.
Okay.
Using a civil state term means that you can have a state which respects all faiths equally. And this is, of course, an ambition. And I think they're working on it. Now, as you know, SCAF, which is the Supreme Council of Armed Forces ruling the country, it has been chosen by, when we overthrew the regime of Mubarak, the army, the armed forces, found itself there whether they like it or not.
Right.
Because there was no other option. And of course, Egyptians have this experience of 1952 when they have Nasser with the military coup, all that, and at that time they called it revolution. That was the 50s. We don't like to look at the 50s again and repeat ourselves as some little African nation or, one of the Central American nations a long time ago, because African countries now are much different, when we had these military leaders coming. So, yes, SCAF is ruling the country ad hoc, on an ad hoc basis. We're trying to put a schedule. The schedule has been put. And I think the people are sort of differing and agreeing with the army every now and then. Of course, people have differences with the army. They want the army to relent power to the civilian authority. The army said, well, okay, we're going to do this after we have elections of the parliament, which is due in next month, and then after that, perhaps a new constitution, and then later presidential elections.
So the army is saying that they will relinquish power only after the presidential election has been completed, right?
Definitely, and I think this is in the interest of everybody, because if you don't have any security, how can you, who's going to protect the ballots, for example? It has to be somebody who has the authority.
Yeah. So the presidential election is likely to be in September next year, is that right?
Well, I don't think the presidential elections we can predict when, because this hasn't been discussed really in details. But I wouldn't think before the last quarter of next year.
I see. Okay. So that's kind of the current sort of roadmap. That the parliamentary elections, and then the presidential election.
Yes, but one thing in between, a new constitution. You can't have a new president without having a new constitution. This has been also a demand of the many people in Egypt, and we had some constitutional amendments and a referendum, if many remember, on March 19th or March 17th this year. So these were just certain articles in the constitution. And of course, the constitution now doesn't fit anybody because, for example, the president used to serve for 6 years. Now we agreed that the president is going to serve for 4 years with a maximum of 2 successive terms, things of the sort. Sure. So you need to have a new constitution that can fit a new president without immense powers like before.
Well, I think you are witnessing, and we are witnessing, a historic development, and you are representing this country at this historic moment. So congratulations, and thank you for coming to Yale.
Well, thank you so much for hosting me here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.